Hi, this video is about section 2.3, which is subtracting integers. In 2.2, we learned how to add integers, and a lot of the stuff that we learned there is what we're going to be using here. The basic idea is when you're subtracting integers, you switch the sign of the second integer and then add normally. Okay, so to subtract two integers, switch the sign of the second integer and add. And the nice thing about doing it this way is it ends up being exactly the same thing we did in the last section, 2.2. It's just you have that initial step where you switch the sign of the second integer, and then you add. Okay, so let's see an example of this. Okay, example, subtract. Instructions are to subtract. Example number 1 is going to be -9 minus 9. Okay, so -9 minus 9. So the thing is here, this minus in front of this 9 means that it's a -9, whereas the minus over here in front of the second 9, that's actually meaning that we're subtracting here. So we're actually subtracting here, but like I just said, to subtract, you switch the sign of the second integer and add. So here, what's this going to look like? Well, the first integer is still going to be -9, but if we switch the sign of the second integer, we're going to actually have plus -9. Okay, we're going to have plus -9. So in other words, -9 minus 9 equals -9 plus -9. Okay, so we switched the sign of the second integer, which was +9, and we made it -9, and now we're just going to add. And that you can do that with every single subtraction problem. And some people actually think of it as really just bringing the minus on the inside. Okay, so you bring the minus on the inside and then you have a plus on the outside. So there's a lot of different ways of thinking about it, but when it comes down to it, you're just switching the sign and then you're adding. Okay, so what we have here is -9 plus -9, and so now what we have to do is we have to add these. But we remember from the previous section that you actually, to add two numbers with the same sign, you keep the sign and add normally. So this is actually just going to be 9 plus 9, which is 18, but because they're both negative, our answer is going to be negative. So our answer is going to be -18. Okay? And once you get used to these, it doesn't take so long. I mean, the first time I describe it to you, it takes a while for me to explain it, but basically all you're doing is when you're subtracting, you just bring that minus inside here, and you have a plus on the outside. In other words, this +9 becomes a -9, and then we add. Okay, so all we did was switch the sign of this +9 to a -9, and then we added. So let's see a couple more examples. Okay, so example number 2. Let's take a look at almost the same problem, but a slight difference. This one's going to be -9 minus -9. So this is almost identical to the last problem we just did. It's just notice here we actually have two minuses in front of this 9. But we're subtracting. We're subtracting negative 9. So what did I say you do when you're subtracting? Well, you switch the sign of the second number. So in the last problem, the sign of the second number was positive 9, and we switched it to negative 9. On this problem, the sign of the second number is negative 9, so now we're going to switch it to positive 9. Okay, so we're going to switch the sign. Switch the sign. Okay, so another way of thinking of it that some people like to say is the two minuses cancel out and they give you a plus. So what we have here is negative 9 plus 9. Okay, and then now what we can see is that we're just adding here, but these two numbers have opposite signs, so we're actually going to be subtracting. Okay, so 9 minus 9. Okay, so we're just adding here, and what we got is negative 9 and plus 9. Because those are opposite signs, we're going to be subtracting. So that's going to give us 9 minus 9, which is 0. And because these are both the same number, we just get 0. And remember, 0 is neither positive nor negative. So 0 is actually just right in the middle. So our answer is 0. All right. And we're going to see a couple more examples of this. But most people find subtracting to be pretty straightforward once they realize that it's the same as adding. You just have that extra step at the beginning where you switch the sign of the second number. Okay, so problem number 3, let's do 237 minus 319. 237 minus 319. So keep in mind that what this means is it's minus positive 319. There's secretly a plus in there. So either thinking of it as distributing the minus onto the inside, or alternately, you could just think of it as switching the sign from plus to minus. The way we would rewrite this would be 237 plus 237 plus negative 319. Okay, 237 plus negative 319. And now we're just adding. But these numbers have opposite signs. So since they have opposite signs, we keep the sign of the larger number and we subtract. Okay, so writing this out, we have 319 minus 237. But since the larger number is negative, we keep the sign of the number with larger absolute value. So we keep the minus, so that means our answer is going to be negative after we're done subtracting. Okay, and then subtracting, we have 9 minus 7 is 2. And then for the 1 minus 3, we can't do that because 1 is smaller than 3, so we borrow from the 3. The 3 becomes a 2, and so we get 11 minus 3, which is 8. Okay, and then 2 minus 2 is 0. So our answer is actually negative 82. Negative 82. Okay? And so that whole process shouldn't be too bad if you've already done the problems from section 2.2. It's just got that extra step in there where you switch the sign. Okay? All right. So I think we're about mostly good here. I just wanted to do a problem that had more than one term. Okay, so because there are a couple of those on your homework. Okay, so example number 4. We're going to be doing, this one has new instructions. Here the instructions are just simplify. Okay, and for this problem, we have negative parentheses negative 3 minus 26 plus negative 14. So negative of negative 3 minus 26 plus negative 14. So this minus in front of the negative 3, you can kind of think of that as like subtraction. Other people think of it as, well, if you have two minuses right next to each other, the two minuses cancel out and give you a plus. But either way, we're going to be switching the sign here, and then we're also going to be switching the sign of the 26. Okay, so this one's a negative 3, and this one right now is a positive 26. Okay, and we're going to switch the signs. Switch the signs. Whenever you're subtracting, you switch the signs. So for the first one, switching the negative 3, it becomes a positive 3. And then for the second one, switching the positive 26, it becomes a negative 26. So we have 3 minus 26, but it's actually going to be, switching the sign, we have 3 plus negative 26. Let me write that again. 3 plus negative 26. Okay, and then for the last term, we just leave it as plus negative 14. Okay, and now that everything is written as adding, we can now just combine the different terms. So for example here, I'm just going to go ahead and combine the last two terms because those have the same sign. So because those have the same sign, we keep the sign and add. So first we're going to do 26 plus 14. And you can write that over on the side if you want, but it's going to be 26 plus 14. And we keep the sign, which is negative, so our answer is going to be negative. And then 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So we actually get negative 40. Negative 40. Okay, so far now we have 3 plus negative 40. 3 plus negative 40. And now looking at these two numbers, 3 is positive and negative 40 is negative. So these are actually opposite signs. These are opposite signs, so we subtract. Opposite signs, so we subtract. And of course, when we subtract, we keep the sign of the larger number, the number with larger absolute value. So because the larger number here is 40, and that has a negative in front of it, that means our answer is going to be negative. So when we're subtracting, we're going to have 40 minus 3. Okay, but because the larger number had a minus, our answer is going to be negative. Okay, and then to do 40 minus 3, we borrow from the 4. The 4 becomes a 3, and then we carry over a 1, so we get 10 minus 3 is 7. And then 3 minus 0 is 3. So we get negative 37 as our answer. Okay? And after that one, I think we should be good for this section. So that's the end of this section.